Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you. Featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today my guest is Carol Pilkington. Carol is a spiritual teacher, astrological counselor, author, and speaker. Carol works with women whom, after fulfilling their worldly pursuits, are realizing that all these things have not been brought to them in a fulfilling way. Now, I want to talk to Carol about astrology, about the itty-bitty books of astrology, and various other things, because Carol has worked with United States presidents, and she received an award for mentoring and year and nominated twice for Women Who Make a Difference through the Los Angeles Business Journal. So we've got a lot to talk about. So I want to welcome to my show Carol Pilkington. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You know, Carol, you had certain life-changing experiences at an early age, which have become a light on your path that guides you through life. Why don't you try to explain to our audience what that means?
Basically, what that means is I had a calling when I was a really young child. I understood innately that who we really are is love, and I was alone in the world. I felt like I was alone in the world with that perception because of the environment that I grew up in. And it made me ask questions at a very early age of what it means to be human and how we came here. I mean, when we're little kids, we're asking some of those questions in a very curious way. How did we get here? And things like that. Mm-hmm. But these are questions that really have driven me throughout my whole life to understand the nature of being here.
Now, you just mentioned a very interesting thing, the nature of being here. So what did you discover at an early age? Because usually children don't think about that. You know, it seems to most young people that they're going to last forever. Now, something in Carol Pilkington's mind made sort of a discovery at an early age. So what would you tell our audience about that?
I think this has been a lifelong process, and it still continues. You know, I think what it means to be human is that we are here to learn lessons and how to grow to be love. And the fact that I feel that we've lived many lives, I think we choose to come into this experience and have these lessons based on things that I've seen, things that I've read.
Carol, share with our audience some of the things that you've actually seen and things that you have felt. Because as I said, it's very unusual for a child to think about life-changing experiences. So, with that in mind, I want the audience to know a little bit more about you and what you say when you say life-changing experiences. What does that mean?
It means that I had an experience, you could say an esoteric experience that informed me that I am not just a body, that I am more than that there is more out there than just the physical, biological nature of being here, that I am consciousness itself, and that we are part of a larger, what Tom Campbell, who's a NASA physicist and metaphysician, talks about as the larger consciousness system. And each one of us comes in to learn our own lessons, and yet we are still part of a greater whole. And I have had that experience of being part of that greater whole, and yet understanding that I'm both separate and and part of the oneness of that consciousness system.
Now, Carol...
at the same time.
Yeah. Now, Carol, many people, when they listen to what you just said, might say, this sounds a little, not odd, but a little woo-woo. I have no way else to describe it. It's not the average person who thinks like you do. So what do you say to them?
Well, it takes time to be able to live it in practical terms. We live in a culture where we're always striving and thriving for our own individuality. And in doing so, it's always about what I can do for me, what I can get for me, what I will get out of such and such. And we rarely ever think of other as other. So thinking in terms of other and knowing that there is other and that everything that we say and do affects the world around us and beyond.
Wow. Now
takes other into consideration, and when we begin to think in terms of other, we no longer think in terms of what I can get out of something or what I need or what I want to do. We begin to think about what do I bring to the table that contributes to the world, to other, and those around me.
So, Carol, what do you think that you bring to the table?
I bring to the table my own sense of and knowing of connectedness, and the fact that I do take others into account, and that I am not here alone. I am not here to evolve just for self alone, that I am here to evolve not only for myself, but to help others evolve at the same time, whoever feels the call to do so.
So when did you feel that call? You use Zen traditions, asking essence questions and combining it with verbal communication called partner-assisted contemplation. I have to know what that means to you so that our audience can understand a little bit more about Carol.
The Zen Buddhists ask questions such as, who am I, and what am I? And those are essence questions. They're basically questions that speak to the nature of our existence. And with the work that I've done and the training that I've had, it's all about learning to inquire and go deep into the nature of a question to arrive at an answer experientially, not intellectually or mentally, but to discover the nature of something by asking a question. And in doing so, it helps to work with others to express whatever is coming up as a result of asking a question, like, for instance, who am I? Now, all the extraneous and superficial things will come up at first until we begin to really dig and ask the question at a deeper level to arrive at answers that really are speaking to the nature of who we really are.
Yeah. Now,
versus just the roles we play in life.
You've had 14 years of experience in meditation, contemplation, and spiritual astrology. Now, how has that made you more aware of the circumstances that you're dealing with?
Just in the nature of keeping it alive, and as I was saying, going into the question of what it is to be human and who I am, and fears and all these kinds of things that we tend to repress and ignore and deny. We don't take responsibility oftentimes for our own existence, and in doing so, we don't take responsibility for the impact that we actually have around us and in the world.
Okay, so I want you to kind of think about this. we live in a world today where many people are really suffering. The life is difficult because of wars, because of biases, prejudices, various other things. Now, why do we have to live like that? Why do people have to suffer? And why do people want to go to war? If you were sitting in front of a group and you said, okay, let's discover, let's kind of analyze why we can't just be a happy society, what would you say to that audience too? Because it's a very difficult world we're living in right now.
Yes, it is. And the answer to that really is quite simple. If we were all the same, we wouldn't know that there were differences. So in other words, there has to be contrast in order for us to know that there are differences between people. And life is messy. Being human and in this world is messy. Mm-hmm. But if we don't have that, then we don't have a game to play in which to grow and evolve. Yeah. The game is set up in such a way that we need these things in order for us to learn what we need to learn and to grow and evolve.
Yeah. Can you cite an experience that you had with one of the groups that you were mentoring, or can you also tell us whether or not you had an unusual experience, and if you did have that, what was it?
Well, I have had an out-of-body experience. I didn't have a near-death experience. I had an out-of-body experience, which is something, the experience might be similar, but it was a conscious decision and a conscious effort to go out of body and have an experience with the non-physical world. And some people have had near-death experiences when they've almost died, and they've come back. So I actually had a conscious out-of-body experience where I requested actually to be taken out of body and given an experience of what that is, so that I have a deeper sense of connection to the non-physical world and that which I am part of. So the non-physical, could you define that for our audience? Is it, I'm wondering what exactly does that mean? So describe that to our audience, an out-of-body experience where you were sharing it with sort of different, not people, not humans. Right.
So I want to know more about that.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we take being human oftentimes for granted, that we are the only entities in the universe. And we're not. And we are entities, we are beings, so to speak, that are having a human experience. And there are many entities out there that we don't see. But we kind of sense that are out there. That there's a whole different world, if you will, of non-physical beings that are not human that are out there.
Mm-hmm. So what did they teach you? Did you learn something from them that has kind of helped you live your life better?
Well, I feel like as I've grown and my mind is quieted down, that I am able to have a communication, if you will, with the non-physical entities that help me be and learn in this world.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's jump.
It's kind of like listening. People talk about intuition and paying attention to different voices that they hear, and that's similar to what I'm talking about. We have an inner knowing and a correlation between the inner and the outer, the in and without world.
Does that
People talk about guides sometimes, angels, whatever people want to say, that they have that connection to, which is non-human. And that's basically what I'm talking about.
Okay, so let's jump to astrology. Again, for some people, astrology is just a kind of funny thing. They love to know their horoscope. They love to understand. They read. It's very funny. If you go to a Chinese restaurant, you get those little cookies that are filled with a little message, and that for a lot of people is just fun. But it sounds like you really believe in astrology, and you think it kind of you can discover many things as a result of it.
Yes, actually, I do. Astrology for me is a holistic system that can guide a person through their evolutionary process. It's not a fortune-telling system or tool. I use it. I use it as a guide to help people grow and provide an understanding of the nature of cycles. And what I mean by a cycle is everything has a beginning, middle, and end. And where we are in any given cycle can inform us on our past, present, and direction toward the future, what we're being pulled towards, what we're being led to, our purpose line, if you will. And that can change as we grow over time. And astrology is a tool that I use and have used to help people understand where they are in their process of evolution.
Carol, you must have had at least, probably dozens and dozens of people whom you mentored, and did you, how do I say, you did astrology with them? Is that the way you would describe it? I did astrology with them, or is there another way or term that you would use for that?
Sure, I had a session with them, an astrological session, but I used it as a foundation for a conversation and a dialogue to take place so that they can have their own insights and discoveries and understand where they are in their own process.
Was there a particular person whom you worked with on this astrology issue? And if you could just, you don't have to give us the name, but just let the audience know how the beginning, the middle, and the end, how you actually talked to them and got them through maybe hard times.
Well, a lot of people, there was a client that I had that was having an issue communicating with their child. And when I looked at both their chart and the child's chart, I was able to see that how they communicate was not clear, and it's like two ships passing in the night. And so when I was able to inform the client on how their child receives information and how they perceive, it changed their whole way of being with that child. And it changed the way they communicated and responded to that child. And it changed their relationship forever. And the same thing happens with adults. I mean, when we understand, oftentimes we just are concerned with how we want to get information across and how we communicate without taking into consideration how another receives information and processes it. And there are things in the chart that can inform us of how that occurs, and so that two people can get on the same page with one another, so to speak, and be able to listen, have a different way of listening to another person and receive what they're saying and express to them more clearly.
Yeah. Now, Carol, you've worked with presidents, and I just, again, names don't have to be mentioned, but what was it like to work with the president? Because, I mean, presidents are very busy people. They have a lot of things they have to deal with. And did this help them when you worked with them?
Well, what happened was years ago when a particular president was visiting the office that I was working at the time, I was in the communications area, telecommunications area, and I had to make sure that the telephone lines were secure so that when they communicated back to Washington, they had secure lines. And it was an interesting process. I didn't work directly face-to-face with the president, but with their communications person. So it was quite fascinating. They did a speech for the whole organization, and I did meet face-to-face this person, shook his hand and everything, and it was amazing. Very charismatic.
Yeah.
Very charismatic.
Can I take a guess? Was it Ronald Reagan?
No, it was not that far back, but Bill Clinton.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, very interesting. So, Carol, if you had a chance to work with Mrs. Clinton, would you love that? I'm sure that Bill Clinton was an amazing man to deal with, but how about Mrs. Clinton?
It all depends upon in what capacity. I think she's a fascinating woman. I think she's got a way about her that she's very self-assured. And yet there's also a vulnerability about her that I don't think most people necessarily see.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to astrology for a moment. So You said it's not like reading palms or the way people think about astrology, where you give your birthday and then they try to figure out, what's going to happen to you. You're going to die soon, or you're going to do this, or you're going to do that. What's the difference between your kind of work in astrology as opposed to the kind of thing that most people think of astrology?
I think it's more empowering. If I give a person all the answers that I think that they want to hear, it's not very empowering to them. But the conversation that we have as they speak and make their chart, as they speak to the chart and make it, they language into the chart so that they're speaking into the chart and they make it come alive. Everything is multidimensional, and so is the chart. The natal chart is a snapshot, if you will, of where the planets were when the person is born.
Oh.
And it's full of potential. As a person lives their life, they make that chart come alive. And with all the lessons that they come in to learn, they speak to that chart, and it changes. And so with astrology, I use it in such a way that helps a person understand the lessons that they've come in to learn.
Now, that is, you're published by Itty Bitty Books. Talk to our audience about Itty Bitty Books. What are they, and where can they get them? And tell us more about the company. Oh,
Itty Bitty Publishing. It's Susie Pruden's publishing company. She's a very good friend of mine, and I have a book with her. It's called Your Amazing Itty Bitty Book of Astrology, 15 Key Questions People Ask About Astrology. And this book is basically answering historical questions about astrology. So, for instance, how astrology got a bad rap and the difference between astrology and astronomy. What can astrology do for a person, and where does it come from? So there are many different misnomers about astrology, misconceptions people have about astrology that I clarify in the book.
Now, you said there are 15 key questions. Give us at least 3 questions that most people ask you.
Why should I believe in astrology? And I say don't believe in astrology, experience it. It's got to be experienced and understood for itself versus believing. Why add another belief onto something? It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in astrology. I know that it works.
I see. That's interesting. So you know it works. So you have all kinds of faith that astrology plays a role in helping people learn, helping people feel better, learn more about themselves. Mm-hmm. So what's the second question that most people ask?
Well, there are a lot of religious people out there, and they're fascinated by astrology on one hand, but feel that it goes against their religious beliefs to pursue it. And so one of the questions is, will I betray my faith if I follow astrology?
And what do you say to that?
I tell them basically learning about astrology doesn't imply you're following it. Doesn't have to be either or, and nothing is black and white. If you believe that astrology, if you have a belief that excludes astrology, then follow your faith. But it doesn't reject faith at all. It actually can help one understand their faith and their beliefs a lot more in a deeper way than ever before.
Mm-hmm. And the third thing that you might, most people ask?
Let's see. Here's a good one. How do the planets have an effect or influence us? And I say, you might have heard the term as above, so below. And it's not that the planets, it's not because the planets are up there that it works. It's that we represent, we fulfill, there's a mutual reception, so to speak. So in other words, we live the archetype of the planetary entities. So for instance, Venus, we talk about Venus as the planet of love and relationship and beauty. And there's an archetype that we fulfill as we look at Venus. And an archetype is a universal understanding of the nature of the planet.
Okay, so
it's as above, so below. We represent that planet, and it represents us, so to speak.
Now, I'm interested in this. It sounds like this is a very serious topic, and in that it's you have to really research. You have to do a lot of what would you say? You have to do a lot of contemplation. But sometimes, do you feel, Carol, that do you have a sense of humor?
Yes.
and having a sense of humor now is with astrology. It's kind of serious, but can you just laugh together with the people that you work with and making them feel like there's humor in their life and that they don't have to take themselves so seriously? Do you agree with that? And do you use humor at all?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, astrology and many other esoteric systems can help one lighten up about themselves and not take themselves so seriously.
There you go.
Life we're here to learn, but we're also here to enjoy. And that's so important. It's a necessary important part of our lives. If we take ourselves so seriously, where's the joy in that?
Right.
Where's the joy in life?
Now, define for our audience the word enjoy, the word happiness. How would you define those two words?
I would define those two words as, again, not taking oneself seriously, but yet also understanding and feeling the connectedness that we all have to one another, the interconnectedness that we have to one another.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that we're social beings, and we're here to live together, to learn from one another, and to have fun as well.
So how does Carol Pilkington have fun?
I'm pretty boring, but...
No, I don't think so.
I love to read. I enjoy going out with close friends and to dinner and the movies. And in my younger days, I used to love to dance.
Oh.
I love to dance.
It's great.
And yeah.
Well, so what's in store for you now? Are you writing any more books? Are you teaching classes, workshops? What are you doing now? And what's in the future for you?
Yes, I work one-on-one with clients, but I also am putting together a women's group for those who feel like they can't truly be themselves out in the world, that they're putting on a facade of everything is okay, but inside they're feeling lost. They were asking that question, who am I? Mm-hmm. And the group is called The Sacred Zone.
Oh, how interesting is that?
And it's really for people to fully be who they are and express where they're at, so that they can, let their hair down and discover themselves again.
That's a wonderful thing. Is it going to happen in California, or is it going to be...
Yes. It'll be here in California, but I'm also going to be doing probably online work so that people all over can participate. But first it's going to be in person here in California, in the Los Angeles area.
Very good. Well, my guest today has been Carol Pilkington. Now, Carol is a spiritual teacher, astrological counselor, and author. And Carol is a very interesting guest, and she's written a book, which is Amazing Itty-Bitty Books of Astrology. And if you want to buy the book, Carol, how do you get it?
You can go on Amazon.com, and you can put my name in, Carol Pilkington, P as in Peter, Pilkington, and that it'll come up that way, or you can put in your amazing itty-bitty book of astrology. Mm-hmm. You can go on Amazon, and I think that's pretty much it right now. You can buy it in Kindle form, or you can buy it in paperback.
Okay. And what about your website?
My website is awareandconscious.com.
There you go. Well, today, as I said, I've had a wonderful guest on my show who's very interesting, and I think that her book probably is going to teach you a lot. Thank you for being on the show, Carol Pilkington.
May I make an offer to your listeners out there?
Absolutely.
I would love to offer them a free half-hour consultation with me. It's a great way to learn about astrology and where you are in any given cycle. So my number is 661-313-4578, and I would love to hear from you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carol, for being on my show. You have been a great guest.
Thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it very much.
Terrific.
Thank you for listening to The Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.